We are beginning a new series here for September, and it's a relationship series. In fact, we're going to be talking about the most important relationship in your life. The series is called, go ahead, Being Rich. I thought this was about relationships. You want to talk about money. Money is the number one relationship in your life. You're like, no, my spouse is the number one relationship in my life. Do you know that money problems are the number one pathway to divorce? Money guides everything that we do. It is the most important relationship we have functionally in our life. Whether that should be or not is another question, but it is. In fact, Jesus said there is a nerve built into your body that goes right from your wallet right to your heart. He says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Even Jesus said, yeah, money's really important to you. And so we need to talk about it because God talks about money. He wants to speak into this thing that we give so much of our attention and time to, somewhat appropriately, right? It's the thing that kind of forms our life, but we want to put it into right order. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time here in September looking at this important relationship. Now, something really, really important happened this weekend. I don't know if you know this. If you're an NFL fanatic, you're probably aware of it. But something incredible happened this weekend. There's a player, Lamar Jackson, who on Friday made the decision not to sign probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a $250 million contract. It might be a little bit less than that, I don't know. Nobody knows really kind of what the negotiations are going on there, but he's not getting the money he wants. Or, one part of it is that he wants guaranteed money because another player got a whole bunch of guaranteed money and he's going, I'm a better player than he is. I'm a better person than that person is, and he certainly is. He's a very fine gentleman. And he went, I'm not going to sign this contract. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine in your life right now going at the table, all I got to do is put my name down and I'm getting somewhere in the neighborhood $250 million in the next 5 years, and going, nah. When we think about being rich, we think about Lamar Jackson and others, especially, big football stars like this. We hear about their ginormous contracts, and we're like, wow, that's the rich people here, right? Incredible wealth that we just kind of like, man, I don't even know what to begin to do with that. Your wife is probably going, I know what to do with that. Right? It astounds us, and we're like, hey, we're just kind of lowly, middle class, rural people here. Rich isn't us, rich is them. I mean, how many of you grew up rich? None of you? How many of you grew up poor? I grew up poor. I'm defining that by if you don't have a door on the bathroom, you're probably poor. We had a curtain. That's it. That's what we could afford. We grew up poor. My favorite toy was not bought. I found it in a ditch. It was one of those old plastic footballs that looked like you got shot by a shotgun, like it had holes through it. I found it, was like, I need a football. And that was my football. I grew up poor. Like, I didn't just like it because I didn't even have a football until I found this one in the ditch, right? And most of the time, that's the way we think. We're like, we're not rich. He's rich. Somebody that can walk away from $250 million for crying out loud. I can't even fathom that. That's who's rich. I'm not. I'm not rich. And yet the Bible gives instruction for those who are rich. You know what? And I suspect that in this passage that Paul's writing, he's not writing to somebody like Lamar Jackson that's got millions and millions of dollars. Let's just look at one verse today here on this. Paul writes this: teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. So we see right there, Paul is picking out this classification of people of going, those who are rich. This isn't advice I'm giving necessarily to everybody, although it probably does apply to everybody. But he's wanting to specifically, he's actually giving advice to his protege, Timothy. Hey, this is how you're to handle these situations. You're going to have some people that are rich in your congregation, and you need to teach them. You need to bring them along. They need to know some stuff as they orient their life around God. It isn't spirituality over here and my checkbook over here. These two intersect because there's a nerve that goes right from my wallet right to my heart. And so you need to teach those who are rich in this world. Now, most of us are going to go, but we're not rich. Obviously, I can move on. I don't have to read this verse, right? It's not about me. I'm not rich. I don't have a contract for $250 million. I'm not Bill Gates. I'm not all these other people that are just rolling in the dough. I'm just paying my bills, trying to make it through each day. I'm not rich. So we should just kind of pass this over, right? The problem with this conversation is that we really don't know who is rich, or better yet, what is rich? What does that mean? What do we mean by that when we say somebody is rich? So there was a study done in 2018, and they surveyed all these people from all different walks of life, all different income levels, and they were asked these questions of going, what does it mean for someone to be rich? And so they gathered up all this information and they averaged it out, and here is what, according to that poll and the thousands of people that they talked to, came up with. They said, now this is 2018, I don't know, I can't do the math for what the last 3 years have been, good night, but we're gonna go with it, okay? They went, you are rich if you make $150,000 a year, and you have net assets of about $1 million. We're going to go, you're rich. And I suspect that probably most of us in this go, yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. We go, see, that study kind of maybe reinforced kind of how we think about this stuff. But when you drill down into the study, it reveals something very interesting. I know if you're not a numbers person, just hang in here with me a little bit, but watch this. So the people that made less than 50,000, they went, you know what, if I could make just 100,000, I would be rich. Not the 150, if I'm making less than, it's 100. I want to get there. The people who were right around making 50,000, they tended to go, I need a little more. I need 200,000. 100,000 doesn't make me rich. It has to be 200,000 a year. Those that made over 75 kind of squished that a little further and went, you know what? I really need 250. So who's rich? Do we just take the average? It seems to me pretty obvious here of going, it really depends on where you're at right now. The less you have, the less that you imagine. The more you have, it's still further out. Even people that may be getting close to what the lowest group thought would be, man, it makes me rich. They're like, oh no, I need more than double that, right? How about for their net worth? The lower quarter of people, 25% of them, said, if I had 100,000 or less in the bank account, I would be rich. We're like, yeah. The top quarter said, I got to have over $1 million. Half of those actually went, I need in excess of $5 million to be rich. Do you understand? There's somebody out there with $2 million in the bank going, I'm not rich. I don't have $5 million. I got to have $5 million to be rich. So what is rich? You have your idea of it. But I suspect, just like these people, it's very much conditioned by the situation you find yourself in. And if that changes, you go, I'm at X, and so if I could get to Z, then I'd be rich. And what you would find is that as you progress through life, if you ever get to Z, you're going to go, Z's not rich. The next one, I should have done Y, huh? X, Y? No, Z is rich. I need to move on. I suppose there's somebody way out there that eventually has enough million, maybe the $250 million, although he walked away from it. Can you believe that? I mean, you should be listening to the commentaries. People are like, this is like generational wealth. Why aren't you just signing this and having a happy life? Go. And he's like, no, I'm going to take the risk. Obviously, for Lamar, he's going, this isn't good enough yet. So what is rich? What does rich even mean? It seems very much conditioned. It's a target that keeps on moving for us, and that we are very slow, pert near impossible for us to ever say, we're rich. Because the goalpost just keeps on moving. No matter how close we get to it. It's like that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The closer you get it, the further it gets away. And so we're never rich. That's not us. Paul is not telling us anything. We're just part of the middle class. We're just rural America. Shoot, I don't even know if I'm hanging on. I might be clinging on to that. Well, let me tell you. There's some good news and some bad news today. The good news for you today is that you are rich. I mean that in not any metaphorical way. I mean that in a literal way. You, me, all of us in this room, there might be maybe an exception. We are rich in this room. We have what we need. We have homes. You got here today. You didn't ride a bicycle here, right? You drove here. You've got food on the table. We have a lot of stuff. We are part of the richest country in the history of humanity, for crying out loud. We're rich. We've got it, and that's okay. We don't like to say it. We have a hard time saying that. You may even be going, no, you're wrong. I don't even want to recognize that. But there's not something wrong here. You notice in the passage that we looked at, Paul didn't say, Timothy, you need to take these rich people aside and go, bad dog. You can't be rich. It's a bad thing to be rich. You shouldn't have money. The only people that can follow Jesus are poor people. No, he doesn't say any of that, does he? Remember this a couple years ago? I actually don't know how long ago it is, COVID brain. Remember the Occupy Wall Street? The one percenters? We're gonna, the 99% of us don't have much, and it's that 1% that's really the rich people. And I'm not making commentary on this. Maybe you're all for that. Maybe you're against it. I don't really care. But boy, they were getting kind of up and atoms there, right? It's the rich 1% that's doing something wrong to us 99%, and they need to step up. Well, on the world scale, do you know that the 1% earn makers make $33,000 a year. Oh, I think the 1% just got a lot bigger. This room just got richer. You are in the 1% of people on this planet, at least in 2018. I don't know about now. Maybe it's even more. I don't know. There's a lot of poverty in the world. There are people that live on nothing. Do you know what they eat in Haiti? Dirt cookies. Do you know what the main ingredient is? Dirt. Have you eaten a dirt cookie? Not the little kids. I'm glad Eric's not here because he probably has eaten a dirt cookie. But you're not eating dirt cookies, right? You're going to, I like Keebler, Toll House. No, I'm going to go with Granny Smith's, you know. Like, we had all that food last week at our thing. We're doing okay. The 0.1% in the world makes 80,000. Now, I don't know, you know, there's probably somebody in here that makes in that realm. You're in the 0.1%. We're rich. We really are, folks, on a grand scale. We might not feel it in the U.S. We may be part of that 99%. But if you broaden that out, and why shouldn't we? We're sitting pretty. Sitting pretty well. Let's say it that way. And that's not a problem. That's not something wrong. Remember, being rich is not wrong. He says, look, it's God who richly gives us all that we need for our enjoyment. He doesn't say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you got to fix this. You're not allowed to have any money. It's okay. There's a lot of rich people, stories of rich people in the Bible. The money isn't the problem. Never has been. The heart's always been kind of the problem thing. But he goes, look, it's all right to recognize I'm doing all right. God's blessed me. He's given me the things that I can do to provide for my family, to enjoy life. It's okay. That's all right. It's good news. We're rich. We've got a lot of what we think. We may not always recognize it, and there's probably been a lot of grumbling in the last couple of years, especially in this last 6 months there with the rise in inflation and so forth. I didn't think we were rich, and then I saw our food bill for last year and was like, I need to get a piece of Lamar Jackson's contract. We're going to cut our food bill. That was for 2021. We're going to cut our food bill. We're going to get tight on this, and then like food prices doubled. I haven't even looked yet. I don't know. I'm going to probably have to start taking out loans for going to grocery shopping, having 4 teenage kids. But you know what? None of us are starving. I could probably use a diet where I didn't have as much, ate some dirt cookies, but we're okay. We're okay, right? The other good news is that being rich is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to recognize God's goodness in our life. This isn't about being grumbly. If anything, maybe we ought to put our grumbling into perspective and to go, you know what? God's taking care of me. I'm trusting him. I'm following him. And he's given me blessings not only financially, but in my family and my kids and situations. Remember, he says, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud. There's an opportunity when we have blessings to recognize the source. It's an opportunity because if we miss it, you know who we give credit to? Well, me, of course, right? I'm the one that made those dollars. It's me who designed this energy machine. I have a patent to that I go to every night, and I hook myself up to my design, and I restore my energy, and I make me smarter every day. Wait a minute, how do you get your energy? How do you do that, Dan? You lay down and do nothing for 8 hours? Oh, you get your energy as a gift. Yeah, you get your smarts as a gift. Don't be proud. Recognize where it comes from. Craig Rochelle puts it this way. He says, every blessing you don't turn back into praise, that you don't recognize that it comes from God and you are grateful for it, leads you to a place of pride. The blessings are a good thing. Recognize them. I have what I need. I know there are tight days. And in those tight days, we don't feel very rich. But that's only because we're comparing ourselves against maybe like Lamar Jackson. Compared to a lot of other folks, we're doing okay. I understand there are people, and especially in our area, because we have a high poverty rate, that are legitimately struggling with food, with medical bills. But Paul is telling us, look, those who have what they need to be careful not to let this turn into pride, but to take this place, this position of gratitude and say, you know what, thank you, Lord, for giving me what I need. It's good news. It's good news. Now for the bad news. Here's the bad news, folks. The bad news, you're rich. This is bad news. Yep. It's the good news and it's the bad news. It's bad news because we're going to go back to Jesus on this. He says, how hard is it for the rich? How hard is it for the rich? See, this is how we know Jesus is a Republican. He identifies with the rich. He sympathizes with them. How hard, they have a hard time. They really do. These are the jokes, folks. Come on. Lighten up, for crying out loud. How hard is it for the rich, what? To enter the kingdom of God, the rule of God in their life, to let God come in and change and lead them. How hard is that? In fact, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. It's a pretty rough statement, especially if it's not too rough if I'm not rich, right? Well, I'm poor, I'm okay. I'm just Phillipsburgian, middle class. I get a weekly paycheck, right? I'm not rich until we found out that we were rich, right? And we know clearly 100% from one of our local experts, a Greek scholar, Tracy's husband, in fact. He has a YouTube channel called Koine Corner. He does the Greek. And he just recently did one on this. He went, let's not make this more difficult. Let's take it at face value. Jesus literally means a camel going through a little needle. Like, this is an absurd type of a thing. We know that. And Jesus says it's hard. It's hard for the rich to do this. Pert near impossible. This is the bad news. There is a spiritual danger with being rich. There is. It's good news. It's good to have what you want, or to have what you need. It's good to be thankful to God, but there is a danger that's created. When you're rich, it's harder for you to depend on God. It just is. Because of that nerve, we just kind of start to go, you know what? It's what I got in my bank account. That's what really gives me my happiness. That's what gives me my security. It's not that I don't believe in God. It's not that I'm not trying to be a good person. It's not that I'm not trying to, but man, when push comes to shove, it's my pocketbook that really has my heart. It's the thing that I lean on. Teach those who are rich in this world not to trust their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God. We've already found out that we like to move the goalposts of being rich. Well, I'm not rich. I don't count on my money. I don't rely on that. We do. And no matter how much you have, if anything, from 2008, that financial disaster that nearly took down the world economy. It didn't matter what you had in your bank account. It didn't matter how well you had your business running. It could have tanked the whole world. We've just gone through a pandemic where a lot of businesses did go under terribly. People that maybe 6 months prior to that were going, man, I'm cruising. I'm ready to expand my business. And man, it was taken from them. See, this isn't just kind of trying to be kind of this overly spiritual. You need to be a goody two-shoe. You need to kind of be a hyper-spiritual, trust in God, don't trust in your money, be a ninny along those lines. No, money literally is unreliable. Don't turn your back on it. It'll bite you. See, Paul's going, there's a sure bet out there. It's not the money. We're taught from a very young age, ooh, grab it, seek it, get it, hide it, hold on to it. There's a proper place for earning it and saving it. But man, it's that issue of trust. Money is just what I use. God is who I trust. And the more you have of it, it's not impossible to do, but it's harder. Abraham pulled it off. We talked a lot about Abraham in the names of God. He was a rich man. He saw it as blessings from God, but he went, God is the lead of my life, not my stuff. Second, it's harder for the rich to keep their true priorities. There's a lot of distractions that come with money. We think it's hard for the poor. Yes, they have their difficulties. There is this hidden difficulty with having a lot of stuff, because stuff starts to own you. There's a lot of things to juggle. They did this study of going, at what point does money kind of not matter? They found out that generally around $95,000 a year, life expectancy kind of evens out. It's no different really whether you make 200 or 100, right? At 60,000, there are really no more positive emotions. You're not going to be happier at 100 than at 60. Now, this is a couple years ago, so maybe it's a little higher. Like there's a difference between 30 and 60. You know, when you can pay your bills and that, there's a difference. But after 60, it's not like, boy, my happiness just keeps on going up and up. You might get excited, but you just kind of even off. What's 100 versus 60? I can already pay my bills. At 75,000, they went, the negative stress evens out. So you go, wait, the more money I have, the less stress I have, right? Up to about 75, and then it evens off, if not, actually starts to increase more. You don't believe me? Oh, come on. You know who he is? Kyle Busch, a championship-winning NASCAR driver. He has won millions and millions of dollars. He's got multiple houses. He's got a jet, for crying out loud. But his sponsorship was going down the tubes. And he was bemoaning here just a month or so ago. A man that's in the millions of categories here. It's been super hard. A lot of sleepless nights figuring out what your future is and all that sort of stuff. Can we all say, "Ah"? No, he goes, I get it. I got money. He understood. He kind of showed a little bit of self-reflection of going, I get it. People are like, yeah, why are you feeling sorry? He goes, it's way, way harder this time because now I've got Kyle Busch Motorsports that I've got to think about. I've got a building that you've got to pay on. You've got a building note and all that sort of stuff. I have a wife. I have 2 children. So there's a whole lot more pieces. And that's why it's not so simple, even though I'm sitting on millions of dollars. Yeah. More doesn't make better. Last one. It's harder on the rich because there's a greater responsibility. So you could have this, have what we need. You could even be grateful. But if you hold it for yourself and say, that's it, that's the limits of my responsibility, you're missing something really important that God says about money. He's going, remember, when you have a blessing and you turn that to praise, you recognize me as the source. And if I'm the source, then I've given it to you for a reason. There's a purpose. Yes, to provide for yourself, to provide for your family, to enjoy life. This isn't about going, oh, you got to live in a cardboard box. Good night, no. But to understand, though, that with every blessing that he does provide, there's a responsibility that comes with that. He's inviting us into this place where he uses us and our resources that he has provided to do unique things. Jesus puts another big statement out there. He says, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. From everyone who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. This comes at the end of a parable where God had, in the parable, someone had been given a responsibility in parallel to our responsibility to serve God and to live right before him. He's going, everything that you have needs to be put in this place of going, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Thank you. Thank you that you've put me in this great place. I'm rich. Yep, there are a lot richer people. That doesn't mean that I'm not rich. I have what I need. God provides. There are tough days, but there's a lot more good days. What would you have me do with this? How would you use me? I get to receive the blessing, but I'm called to be a blessing. So that's your news for today, your good and your bad news. Your good news is you are rich, and God has provided. The bad news is you are rich, and there are dangers, and we need to talk about those. Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud, not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Teach them to trust God, who richly gives all we need for our enjoyment. Let's pray. Lord, it can feel like a touchy subject here because, man, the money sure does matter to us. You care a whole lot less about the money. You care more about the heart. And, Lord, you are a provider. We've learned that in your names, in your faithfulness. But, Lord, we want to walk that path with your wisdom. Not just smart in the world's way, but smart, smart's not the wise in the ways of God with the blessings that you give us. So, Lord, open up our hearts over these next few weeks as we listen with our ear to what you have to say. Maybe make some adjustments to how we relate to this thing that we have in our life necessarily, but how it can be a blessing, how we can be a blessing as we partner with you.